You're checking out the Investor Shed podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet.
Everybody, welcome to the Investor Shed podcast. My name is Nick Beveridge, and I'm here with my co-host, the lovely, the bald, Jeremy Kitchen. How you doing?
Slightly less bald than usual. I got to reshave this up a little bit, but
It's looking good.
Thank you. Might grow back out that mullet from the high school days. We'll see how that goes. But things are going good, man. Yeah. How are you doing?
You should do it, and you should not get your wife's permission.
That's a recipe for disaster.
I'm doing great this morning. I did not work out this morning, but the last 2 mornings I've been with a trainer doing weightlifting, and I'm taking a break. But I'm going to be back at it tomorrow.
Nice. Make sure you do your push-ups.
Okay, you got it. All right. Well, everybody, we have a treat for you today, like we do every freaking day. But this treat is especially delicious because we have Michael Porche. Michael Porche from STR Legacies. He runs a specialty mentorship group helping people invest in short-term rentals all around the country. I'm actually a part of his group. This is the only mentorship program I've ever joined. I've heard a lot of spiels in my day, and I just really like Michael. I like what he's doing, and I like that it's a small tribe, small community, and it's relatively affordable. So anyway, we're going to actually talk a lot about his mentorship program and a little bit on short-term rental investing, but it's all worth it. What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, it was a really good episode. Michael provides a lot of great insight. The things he's doing are super cool, especially with his outreach on social media. You're definitely not going to want to miss this episode.
Yeah. So this episode again is more about it's more about growing a business than it is actually investing in real estate and the how-tos. It's more about the business itself. So I'm excited. You guys better be quick, take a pee, and listen to this podcast in its entirety. See ya. All right. Welcome to the Investor Shed podcast. Michael Porche, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. And Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent as always. Thank you so much. Michael, yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's awesome to have you on. You're doing a lot of awesome things, especially in the short-term rental market. Can you explain a little bit what you're doing and what a short-term rental is and what the benefits of it are?
Yeah, so I'm assuming if, anybody who's listening to this probably knows what a short-term rental, but I'm going to get into at least the definite term, if that makes sense. So the short-term rental is anything that is rented, I'd say consecutive less than 30 days, as a rental. So you buy a house, you rent it out for less than 30 days, just for a general term. That's what I'm going to use because that's a little more of an accurate picture in terms of broader picture of what is considered a short-term rental. What I'm doing is, so we're selectively finding essentially the golden deals or the golden nuggets throughout the U.S. We have a little opportunity to kind of like jump from place to place, state to state, and kind of find those higher cash on cash returns. And so we have some criteria that we look through, and we essentially find these short-term rentals that have the capacity and ability to perform at a higher level. So what that means is, I like to look at things as vehicles. So you have, maybe a car as a vehicle or a plane as a vehicle. If you're looking to travel somewhere far away, a lot of times that plane will get you there a lot faster and maybe a little more secure. So we're finding places or vehicles, which is in hindsight real estate, that's able to move at a faster rate, move your money at a faster rate. So our goal being financial freedom, time freedom to be able to have more of that. We need vehicles that move fast. So we find these fast vehicles, in I'd say random locations or little small towns, medium-sized towns that where you can buy a property for $100,000 or let's say $400,000, and that $400,000 property will gross, 100, 120, 130, 140, and more. So that's the goal essentially of finding these higher cash on cash return properties, and a lot more detail goes into that. But that's what we're doing, and kind of like what a short-term rental is. And, for us, it's, because you only have so much cash, like maybe 50, 60, 80, 100,000. And, you know, once you put that away into an investment, that's it. It's tied up. And so you have to wait till that investment gives you your money back. So we prefer it if it give us our money back in a year and a half.
Awesome. So, can you take us back a little bit? What first got you interested in short-term rental investing?
Yeah, happened by happenstance. So, I started off because I really liked the idea of doing business and real estate after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was the one thing I really like caught on to. And it was like this idea of having a business and owning the real estate. I was like, that's really cool. So I started off in like this assisted living journey because I was like, yeah, you can buy real estate and rent out multiple rooms, and assisted living is super leverageable. And so my wife and I got into that. That was busy. That was a lot more to it than the ease that it maybe led on to be. But I think that's the way with a lot of things. But more so than that too, even us getting into it, it just wasn't all that exciting. It wasn't all that fun. There's a lot of unfortunate things happen in assisted living that just like in regards to people taking advantage of their parents or grandparents or etc. And super unfortunate, but could be a great model. I think we did pretty successfully well with it. We learned a lot, but it just wasn't for us. So we were kind of like dabbling around after that, doing some wholesaling, which is essentially just buying contracts for real estate and selling them. And then, checking out some multifamily and doing things of that nature. And then we bought our first house. We rented out, we definitely wanted to house hack. And so one of the opportunities that we thought to ourselves was like, hey, we really want to rent this out. So we're trying to decide whether long-term or as a short-term rental. And we decided to go the route of a short-term rental, thinking that we can make maybe a little more, because at the time the long-term rental for that little room would have been like maybe $600, $700 a month. And so we put, maybe a couple thousand into it just by furnishing it, more than a couple thousand, I guess. Putting a bar into it, like its own little mini kitchenette, and its own separate entrance. And after doing that, we made about maybe $3,000 the first month. And we were like, holy cow, this is cool, man. That just paid for like our whole mortgage.
That is really good for one bedroom in a shared space. $3,000 a month.
Exactly. And it's little nuts. And so technically, we call it a studio because it has its own entrance, kind of, which is really just through the garage. It's kind of unique in that. But other than that, it's not really it's definitely a room, but we just sealed it off. We put in like a door and a wall and lock it. That's separated from the house.
So you tried out assisted living first. Was that mostly, because you saw all the opportunity, and then I'm guessing like right away your mindset wasn't like, this isn't going to work out for my mindset long term or something like along those lines? Is that why you decided to end it pretty quickly?
Well, we saw the opportunity, and because of the baby boomers and needing, it's definitely a need, and we saw the opportunity in terms of like how much you could make from it. But I think going through it and operating it, because we wanted to own the business and we also want to own the real estate, so operating it was not fun for us. And so we did it for about a year. We were into it and learning through it, and then we actually had like a seller finance deal that we went into it with a person who was selling the business, and that relationship got really sticky and confusing and just not reliable. Like, he was supposed to teach us and show us how to do it and all kind of stuff. We ended up having to bring someone else completely new in, which was definitely the right choice, and they kind of coached us along through it. In return, it went really well, but he just kind of had a lot of issues with the business, and so we ended up selling our, I guess, share of investment of going into it. But our plan was to kind of actually start our own and do it again and just learn from what we did. But after we left that relationship and those two properties, we kind of just like had no desire to jump into it. There was nothing that was like really pulling us to it, I guess.
Yeah, especially if you have zero desire and it takes that much work. I'm kind of glad you just left it pretty quickly and decided to move on to something else. And yeah, the short-term rental world is pretty fun, right? I would hope it has been for me anyway.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there, everything comes with its troubles. I think the most annoying thing is just like if you ever like co-hosting or manage, someone else's property, it's really like, okay, you have to deal with the clients, which is really annoying. I don't enjoy that because we also own a management company, but the guests is probably the only thing that you kind of have to deal with that can be annoying, but like they're not that bad, especially if you have a team set up to take care of them. But yeah, they're really not that bad. But yeah, I'd say overall that's like the worst of it. The best of it is you get to be creative. You get to buy these homes undervalued. Because you're not buying them on a cap rate. You're buying them on what other normal people think its value is, and you get these awesome numbers from these properties. And all you got to do is add some fun amenities to it that people enjoy, and they're willing to pay more for it now. And now you're like, oh, well, this is a fun little, cool little asset class. And then you get to visit it sometimes, if you want to. So yeah.
Okay, so you started off by you took a room in your house, you put a couple $1,000 into it, you threw it on, I'm guessing Airbnb, VRBO, those kind of sites. You were blown away by how much income it made. Like the first month, it probably paid your mortgage plus more, right?
Yeah. I mean, we were getting paid to live there that first month at least.
Yeah. So what was the very next action step that you took, knowing a light bulb went off in your head? Maybe I should jump down this rabbit hole. What was the next thing you did?
We had this idea, and it was more along the line like, hey, it would be really cool just to travel, like own Airbnbs where we want to travel to. And so that spark led to me trying to figure out, well, what's the most like income I can make from more places. And that kind of led down a little journey of, getting obsessed with data and trying to find out terms using AirDNA, figuring out how that works. And to be honest, I think there was a real, in the beginning, it was really a rudimentary way of figuring things out, and a lot more guessing, even with AirDNA, even with our own, doing my own analysis of different markets. But to be honest, I think it took, to where I am now, to thinking about how we do analysis and what we do to verify certain numbers is way different than kind of what we initially came to. So definitely the data is where it started, and it was very rudimentary even then in the beginning, but to where it is now, it's completely different. And I'd say even more so now, the light bulb continues to grow and go off and get hotter because we're just digging in deeper into these markets. We're digging in deeper to what creates returns. And it started more for like the sake of, I want to go vacation to these places, to what's the vacation place I want to like go to that would give the most return. And now I'm figuring out, I've been being able to test and see all these wonderful things that kind of create a larger return that first start with location and then amenities and things like that.
Awesome. And so you're in a lot of markets right now, Michael. What markets are you focused on? Like, what is the driving factor that brings you to these markets? Because obviously, if you're investing nationwide, you got to know your stuff, right?
Yeah. So there's a few factors. So right now I'm in quite a few sub markets, but in Florida, we're in some near some skiing areas in Vermont, like Mount Snow or Mount Stratton, if you're familiar. We just entered into Rockbridge, Logan, Ohio, which is just outside of Columbus, Ohio. That's kind of like the mountain towns that people will travel to from Columbus. We're in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. So those are kind of like the areas that we've been focusing on as of recent, and where we're still pouring more into, and we love those areas. And so and how we evaluate getting there is we really look at and also I guess Saratoga Springs in New York is another spot. But we evaluate kind of more on the cash on cash basis. So if we're able to buy a property for a lot lower, and especially if the competitive advantage is low, we have a lot of value to bring to it. Meaning, just by buying a house and putting on Airbnb alone will generate a lot of cash. So like I said before, $400,000 property bring us probably like north of 140,000 is like typical. Um, then on top of that, now we can throw in our expertise of like amenities where people love to travel to, really bring more people there and kind of like focus on that, which just even more increases it. So like what brings us there is the cash on cash, which we look through from AirDNA and finding those markets, and then we just analyze them. And then two would be the competitive advantage, and is it growing? So competitive advantage meaning, a great example is if you go to like Poconos, the Smoky Mountains, or even Joshua Tree. Like there is a glass or a mirrored like structure in Joshua Tree, like complete mirrors, like super unique. Um, and like in order for you to stand out in Joshua Tree or do well in Joshua Tree, you can't just buy a house and pin it out. You have to have some competitive advantage, like a glass house. And so, we look for places that maybe you don't need a competitive advantage, just so that we can be the first ones to bring the competitive advantage. So the baseline is really strong. And then we just add that competitive advantage as well, which that's how we kind of come to find these places.
Yeah. And I was kind of blown away when I joined your mentorship program, and I got to view some of the, top markets in the nation that you should be investing in based off, certain metrics like cash on cash and that kind of stuff. I was looking at these markets that like nobody's talking about. Very small. And I was just so I appreciate that you're willing to do that kind of research, for your and actually can we touch on this too, your mentorship program? What made you decide to start that up, and what was that like to create a platform, like an education type platform, and mentorship type platform? What made you decide to do that, and what was that journey like?
Yeah, completely selfish, really. It was really just so I wanted to get more people around and kind of like use them as test subjects, to be honest, when I first started. And so that was the start of it. And I learned, I would say, a lot from that whole process as well. Um, and figured there was quite a few things that I wanted to build a tribe. I wanted to bring people around that I can like use and really test out the data that I have. And it was through them, or the initial start, that I was able to do this and really buy more data from it, because it didn't make any sense if I were to buy all this data for myself, because I can leverage it all for myself. But like being able to bring a group around and have everyone leverage it, it was like, okay, that I can do. Um, and then by doing it more and more, I actually like, wow, this is a way to make some pretty good money. At the same time, I'm really enjoying coaching. I'm really enjoying teaching. And it's also allowing me to have different hands in different markets, because I'm coaching people through buying these properties in different markets. So my mind and the teaching ability is growing exponentially more than it ever would have, like by myself. I would never have known the things I would have known without the people in the group now, because they're testing out markets. They're getting real time, data, and I'm able to record it, see it, measure it, that I wouldn't be able to do by myself. And so even to the max of, or to the point of being able to also see it on the other end, because now we just kind of had upgrade group, coaching education group, that's now no longer coaching, but more of a truer mastermind. Now some of these people who've gone through, now we're looking at doing bigger deals, evaluating things like we have a couple of hotels that we have under contract and we're doing due diligence on. I just, right before this call, we were evaluating an RV park that we're looking to jump in on, and seeing what kind of factors we can bring to it. And so leveraging the people who join this group, because now I'm sharing really just data and coaching and tactics and what I'm learning through it. Now I'm able to like gather all that so that we can band together to do bigger deals, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I guess it was just community was part of it. To buy data was the initial start, and now it's really enjoyable. It's fun.
Yeah. No, I got to commend you though, because like what you did took in my eyes, a lot of courage and a lot of guts and a lot of commitment more than anything. Because I remember when I feel like I've done something similar, but more on a local level, where I started a group when I started investing pretty heavily in flipping houses and buying rentals. But I started a local meetup that I had to be committed to, and I have to show up a couple times a month to it. Because people will come and you got to be there to make sure the door's unlocked, you know? And I feel like, you know, you've kind of committed and put yourself in that ringer of, you know, here's the group and people are coming in and you got to show up. Right. But it gives you a tremendous edge, to constantly, you have to sharpen your sword. Cause you have to show, cause you're now committed to a group of people. If that makes sense. But I just think a really brilliant move, because you're bringing value to people and yourself at the same time. What are some of the things that you learned putting together a mentorship program?
Oh man, definitely commend and agree everything with what you said. It definitely changes, and to be honest, it was partly because of my own ignorance of not knowing what I was getting into, and that's really what it was, and that most of the time is what it is. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to do this, but we're going to figure it out. And then you figure out if you like it or if you don't like it. Honestly, the first thought that comes to mind was, you know, what it really takes to be successful. Because I see a lot of these people come through and I see what they're doing. And I guess overall like some people just not taking action and some people who are. And so I used to think that it just took the education. Like, if someone just had education, they would have what it has or what you need in order to be successful. And so I started off that way. Here's all the education. Here's all the data. Like, go. And that's more towards my personalities, because I just need someone to tell me what it is that I can do. Give me some education. I'll take action from there. But I would say 80% of people aren't like that. And even more so, they need.
I've learned the same thing. You know, I thought I put out education, the same, you know, teaching the same kind of stuff, and you got eyeballs looking at you. 80% that haven't done a deal yet, that still just don't. They're just not going to apply what they're learning. And that's the biggest thing. But then you just got some people that you can't train motivation, but they're just motivated, and it doesn't matter if they're absorbing the actual material or not. They're going to put things together, and it's more about just being part of a community and a group.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like, and to that fact, like, even the very beginning when I first started, I had this gal and I just showed her essentially where I was, like, if she was interested in getting into Airbnb, I showed her like where I was investing and I showed her the data that I used. She took that information and then she goes and buys a house in this other area completely. Like, she's obsessed over it, and she took action. I'm like, great. So I guess I'll start a group and you know, and everyone else will be able to do this too. And then I really like, that's how I started. But then now it's like, I've developed it into, okay, there's weekly accountability forms you have to fill out. I will guarantee your success and give you all your money back and give you $1,000 if you don't succeed. But with that being said, you have to do 12 accountability forms. We meet once a month, one-on-one, just to do like a monthly progress check. I've developed it rather from education to these phases. So there's 6 phases part of my program now, and that they have to go through each phase first. And then they can't move on to the next phase until they finish the first phase. And so, and now I'm like constantly reaching out to them because they need that motivation, they need the kick in the butt, and they need to be reminded what they do, and they need to have some fire underneath them to really like get there. And so it went from an education program, which you can charge whatever for it, to a result. I call it a result program or something of that nature. I'm still trying to coin it, but because it, like, you need to have a little more fire. So I'm constantly growing to see, like, okay, what's going to take to have people be focused and take action and essentially like apply themselves. And so that's kind of what I've been learning.
Yeah, and I've learned the same thing too, growing real estate teams and starting that group, you know, and I was of the same mindset too. It's like, all I need is a little education, and I'm just going to jump on this stuff. And I was so confused why others wouldn't.
Yeah.
And then you started off just running with this stuff, and then the very first person that you inspired ran with this stuff, and then you started a group. And then, what was it like the first 10 or so people? was it a little frustrating? Like, hey, why aren't people just applying what I'm teaching?
It was exciting at first because it was new to me and it was new to them. And I feel like some people were taking action. So it was like, two people were really like out of the first 10, right? And it was it was exciting because see those, oh, two people took action, right?
Yeah, that's the 80/20 rule at play.
Exactly. Literally like the exact number too. And so, but the rest didn't. The rest never did. And I was even surprised to see that people are willing to pay a certain amount of money just to be able like, I feel like they purchased it, but they never used it. Um, at the time, I think it was like around $1,000 or something that I was charging. That was probably, I think it was actually first with you. Um,
Oh, I think I joined after I heard your speech the third time.
yes. Okay.
So I paid 3,500 bucks or something like that. It went up $1,000 every time, I think.
Yeah, it did.
It wasn't about the money with me. It was just about, am I ready to be held accountable to something? It was just about like, am I ready to really dive into some sort of program and absorb it? And, honestly, I guess I wasn't ready for it, but I have it on the sidelines. I do, if you allow me, I want to jump back in once I'm done with, solving this house flipping mess.
Oh
But
yeah. Yeah. And even now, like when I do calls or sales calls or strategy sessions, I ask like, do you have the time? And I'm really straight with people, like, because you're gonna want to commit to something and go have it go through. And so now we've actually, I don't impress this on the people who joined before, but I impress this in people who join now. It's in our agreement. They have 16 weeks to complete it. And so in their mind, there's an end date. And so having established that, it also helps in regards to one, I can devote so much attention to so many people now. And two, it's with an end date, it's like, oh no, you have to finish by this time, otherwise that's it. So like it does help a little bit, but still you do have those people who will fall off the bandwagon or that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, you definitely want to really allocate time and then also get really specific with people on the next steps, like one step at a time, but next steps. Um, but overall, it's been a great journey, and like I think just gathering a whole bunch of dedicated people in one space is really a profound thing of opportunity because you get to make connections, you get to build relationships with people that you would never have had. And I mean, like I said, I created this next level program, which is essentially us doing bigger deals. And that would have never happened if I didn't do this. I would have, well, for me at least, I would have not have done that. But now I have all this opportunity. I can bring more people with higher caliber or, wanting to do more because now I'm creating a resource for that. So they can benefit more from it because now we're looking bigger, which is exciting.
Nice. So real quick, I'm gonna divert just a little bit, Michael. I notice you're doing a lot of social media stuff. Um, ha- I'm on there too, so I get it. But how beneficial is that to have a social media presence nowadays?
Oh my gosh, it is absolutely, you have to. You absolutely have to. So like I get irritated because I try and make an hour a day to go make some content, and now as it's a lot of time you have to devote to it, but the return on your money is ridiculous on your time. So I'm actually hiring another guy, and we're doing a partnership to where like it costs maybe another 3 grand a month, but we spend one day for 4 hours. I write my scripts and everything I want to talk about, all the content, and I get all my different clothes and stuff, and just lay it out for like 30 pieces of content for the entire month, right? And I'm still doing stuff myself, but you have like, and I'm like, I started off and then there was a growth with that too, because I started off like recording content and then having my virtual assistants edit it and post it. I wasn't getting a whole lot of retention. And then I talked to this girl who's making $300,000 a month, and she does all of her own content. Just like because she really knows her avatar. She knows what their pain is, and she knows what and she just gives information away, like all education that they need to be successful in their space. She gives it, and she addresses those things that they're thinking about. And when she said that, and thinking the caliber of the time that she takes for it, I switched my gears. Because at the time when I was doing those posts, having my virtual assistants do it, I was getting a few views. There wasn't any like ROI. And then when I took it over and I was measuring things, I was figuring what people actually want. My growth as well as my reach and people watching grew over 400%. And so, and it's not a lot to people. I wasn't really growing before much, like maybe a follower a week or a couple followers a week. Now it's like 60. I've been growing about 60 followers a day. Um, and so that just that amount of reach, and those are all people who are interested in your content, right? Because like I found out what people, and you're just finding what people want to see and or what they want to know. Just give it away. Like they're like, oh, why would you tell where places you're investing? Because ain't none of them are really going to do it. You know, like they're not going to take action. I mean, I'm literally telling people where they can actually buy a great deal that's going to change their life, but they're not going to do anything about it. But they love seeing it. They love getting that information because they feel like they're taking action just by listening to it. And they might. Some of them might, and good for them. Actually, I have a guy who's reaching he actually made an offer on a property that I posted about um on my social media, which was pretty funny. But yeah, I think it's absolutely necessary. I think you need to because it builds so much trust and people don't know you and you need to build trust and you need to give tons of value away in order to build that kind of trust. Like they need to be like I would say it this way, they need to be completely successful. If you're a business service, like investing service types of thing, you need to actually have value where they can actually take your information that you're providing, um and they'd be able to take that, um, and for them to be successful based off that information. Like that's the kind of value you need to bring. Because if they're not getting followers from that at all, then you just need to stop. I don't know, or do something else. Test something else.
Switch up your strategy a little bit for sure. Are you posting on TikTok? Are you posting on LinkedIn? Like, where's your main source that you're trying to push all your eggs, basically?
Yeah, so I think I'm in the beginning phases still. I would say there's a few phases, and I heard some other guy talk about this, and I thought I was really impressed with what he was saying about on how like there's phases of it. Because I want to be on all platforms, because all platforms reach all different kinds of people. And so I'm still like in between. I think I'm in phase two. Like phase one is just you just need to start posting, start testing. Phase two is like you need to find out who you're posting to and just do it every day. Um, Phase three is now you're like I would say get on all platforms and post every day. And so I'm posting right now on Instagram and TikTok very consistently and semi consistently on LinkedIn, YouTube, um, and what else?
Facebook.
Facebook. Yeah, that one.
Gotcha.
So I'm trying to make it so that I like to post on all platforms and like use some of the same content because they reach completely different people. And some things may hit like really well on one platform but not on the other.
I've noticed that too.
Yeah, and so you don't know until you just throw it out there and test different things and find out what the algorithms work. And but if you're doing it every single day and you're learning, it's just the amount of like people that follow you that you have and that also trust you and you know like your stuff. That's a lot of influence that you can gather. So it's just giving good something valuable, right? Something that's yeah valuable or just entertaining. Entertaining is valuable, right? We all need to laugh.
Yeah.
Like I look at some of your stuff, I'm like, that was awesome.
Well, there's definitely a formula with that stuff, right? Like you're supposed to provide, 80% value, 10% sales, 10% entertainment, something like that. So that way they're always getting something, and then you always hook them back with, by the way, I'm doing this. Come check out my stuff, and then it gets people reaching back into the pot and kind of feeding itself. So
Yep. And at some point too, if you're giving so much value to somebody, it's just stacking up in the things that they owe you. That they feel like he's been giving me so much valuable information for so long, like they have this impression that they feel like they need to do something, after some time, especially if you haven't asked for anything back.
So, Michael, I noticed when you started your mentorship program, the first time you started pitching it was at investment meetings, right? And you would go out and speak and offer your services. Has that changed much since you started getting heavy onto social media, or are you still out there pounding the streets?
Yeah, it's completely changed. So now I don't do that anymore, only because it's not leverageable, or scalable, I should say. So yeah, now it's I've transitioned from doing it over like real estate meetup groups to now I'm doing it. Um, Started like doing organic messaging for the last 6 months and trying to learn that model and like what's the best way. And I just started introducing ads. So I just started reaching and getting in the ad space, which is that's really where people start scaling because organic messaging you can only do so much, but it's a great way to start. And that, to be honest, was huge for my business because there's a cadence to it. You know, you can reach people through bigger pockets, through Instagram, through Facebook. Social media doubles down on that. Ads double down on that. Um, and so, and ads is really like an infinite because as long as you're bringing people in, you can continue to grow. Um, but so yeah, so that's kind of like my overall strategy now is for the outreach to find value is just to find people through social media, um, and ads. That's been a huge market for it, and um, and now like in terms of speaking, the only types I think speaking events that I've been doing as of recently for it that have been worthwhile really are our own events that we're putting on. And so this is a new thing we just started doing live events, but so we'll run ads to these live events, at least to get the game plan, but they're I would say overall designed for the mastermind to bring more value so that people can meet one another, build relationships, create, more trust with one another to do deals and things of that nature. And, I put on some more stuff to give value to them, feed them, do some surprise, just kind of like really cement that tribe feel. But beyond that, day one of that, I would, or at least the plan, I haven't done it yet, but the plan is to bring all a bunch of new people who are looking to learn about something. And so by partnering people and running ads and to bring people to that event. And so that is probably going to be the only time I'll sell in front typically, unless it's another partnership through something else. Um, just because that's a more of a convenient, scalable thing to do when at that point in time.
Okay. So so I'm going to ask some questions, and if you don't want to share, feel free. You don't have to share, and we can edit all this out. But I'm really curious, and I think some people out there might be too, just if they ever want to do something similar, because mostly you have real estate investors listening to this kind of stuff. Um, but when you went out there to pitch your mentorship program, how many times did you go out there and speak at different events, and how many people were you able to bring into your tribe, and then at what point did you decide to switch to more of a content based marketing platform, and then how effective has that been?
Yeah. So the stage, there's a certain way to do it, and you have to like appeal to every little action in the group mentality and group think of it. But I would do it pretty often. I would try to do it like at least 3 times a month. I was trying to, and at first it was getting like 10 to 20% during one of these, and it was, but it was also at a lower price point, which is you can definitely do it at a lower price point, and I consider the $3,000 mark was a lower price point. Um,
That's very low.
yeah, and then when I started getting higher in price, it became less effective. It was almost like people needed the like individual attention to kind of like one on one building trust that way to make it work. And so, not to say you couldn't do it, I mean, because you definitely can at those higher price points. It's just it requires more time together than just an evening or just a couple hours or just an hour, right? For people to pay that much, you need either one on one time with an hour, or you need like that's why you have these big old education companies who spend 3 days with you, and they pitch those $20,000 programs because or more because they spend so much time with you, and so you get to know them, um, and you see you know um, proof after proof after proof after proof, right? Like, oh, and you're trying to appeal to every single aspect, but so when you can be very specific to someone's like one on one, and that's when I started switching. When I started raising price, and I realized I wasn't getting as good of a response. At the same time, I needed something to be a little more consistent with it. I started going the social media approach finding people who were looking for that kind of help, and really listening to what they needed, and so, or what they wanted. Um, and then hearing about what they wanted, and if you're able to address that specifically and show them exactly how it's going to show them or get them what they want, while at the same time showing proof that it does that and how quickly it can happen, then it becomes a lot more real. And then you just make it like, hey, how can I make this, like, if this is something that would you benefit from, and how can I make this a reality for you? Is kind of like that process.
Yeah. Okay. And do you mind sharing like how many people you're currently mentoring today?
Yeah, we're about at 70 people.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool to see. And we're growing. Like, we had some pauses because I've been trying to scale, and I like to bite off more than I can chew. And so we've had some, because of that, because of me biting way too much. Like, just imagine you eat too much, and you start gagging, you throw up, right? It just completely slows you down, rather than if you just take time taking your bites.
You're preaching to the choir, man.
I know, right?
I'm like, Nick, are you taking notes here? This sounds like you.
I feel like this podcast is all about me today. I'm just asking my personal questions. I want to know.
I love it. Well, there's a lot of, I feel like that's so true. Like, and I've heard other people who I look up to who said, like, I wish I wouldn't have tried to get to the next number so quickly. It's like, oh, I want to get 50,000 a month, or I want to get 100,000 a month, or I want to get $1 million a month. Like, stop growing to that number, because you want to, and like the people who I now see sustainably, like, they wanted to figure out what operations looked like to be able to handle that number first. And so I get a lot of value from that now, because when I try to scale and jump, I didn't realize, because I brought on a sales guy, and I didn't realize what kind of, I guess, what kind of holes I had in my business, until I brought on people to, like, pay to do this and that. And I realized, oh, there's a lot of holes in my business. And so those holes got really leaky, and then all of a sudden I lose, like, a couple months revenue, because I never plugged those holes. I never had something to fill that before I brought someone else on. And so now I'm a little more in the mindset of, like, okay, we're going to work this slowly. We're going to dial in all these things. We're going to make these videos and make sure there's training and there's, processes for each one of these steps before moving forward, because I want to know exactly the science of how it works, and why people are buying, and why people are, and who our avatar is, and how to work these ads. Like I've been in just organic messaging for the last 6 months, and I thought I would only do that for 1 month and go move on to the next. And like, I'm in ads, and we're in the beginning stages, and we're figuring out, creating all these different hooks, and figuring out all these different processes, and what actually keeps people to stay on these strategy sessions and what doesn't. And so, and I'm fine being in the place where we're at now, but there's still that hindsight. I want to do more, but there's definitely this place where you have to understand the pace of that. And that comes with everything, I feel like.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of my biggest weaknesses, is I always try to bite off more than I can chew. So I totally understand what you're saying there, but thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah. Oh, and did I answer your question about how many people would join? Like, because there's about, like, so there's 70 in our group now, and there's, at the meetups, maybe 10 to 20%, give or take, at the lower price point. And then, now I'd say, now I'm a higher price point, I would say maybe like 30% people who I talk to are on sales calls, or price drop is what they call it, will join for the most part. So
for the people that are listening to this that might be interested in joining your program, can you give your 30-second pitch on what it is and how much it costs?
Sure. Yeah. So, so we're a result-oriented program. The biggest thing I can say, and like the one-liner, was probably like, we find high cash flowing Airbnbs in undisclosed locations. So what that looks like is not like, there's a lot of programs of education programs that teach you on how to do Airbnb. They cost maybe $3,000, $5,000, somewhere around that marker. We're not that cheap. And I say it that way on, like, really on purpose, because a lot of people go through those programs and just go through the same education space. But we now, the way we designed it is, we're a result-oriented program. And so our guarantee is extremely strong in terms of, we get you your first property that's cash flowing high. So that means the deals that we do in our underwriting is 50% cash on cash, and so now we even give out deals at that price point, or at those deal markers. We send out like eight a week. Um, but so we do around, yeah.
So are these properties that like you're wholesaling?
No, actually, this is just ones we're seeing that's listed, because that takes a while, and there's definitely value in that, but I want people to have value in the group, in the tribe, not in necessarily making more money off of them.
That's even better then. So you're out there. You've identified. Hey, these properties are awesome. People jump on them. You've got 70 people. There's 8 a week. That's pretty enticing.
Yeah, so it's 20. Like I pay someone. I do, like, they're spending 20 hours a week, and all they're doing is analyzing markets and deals, and they're throwing it down. We have a couple under contract right now that from our students are doing in those different markets. Um, that are really great, actually great properties. But because like I said, like, ours is really result oriented program. Yeah, you can go learn how to do Airbnb, but typically what I see a lot of, like, this one guy who is trying to buy deals off of the one that I'm doing. He joined, I think, like Rob Built's program, or paid, like, I don't know, $4,000 or something for it. And he's kind of learning and getting deals from us, even though his program is supposed to help him with that. But, like, he's trying to get more information and stuff from us because we're giving out the properties that are actually solving his problem. And so, because anyone can go buy a property and throw it on Airbnb, it's really simple in my own backyard, but they're not necessarily going to make money on it. And the number one driver that's going to make money on Airbnb, is starting off with, is your location. Second, it is amenities, and these other programs teach amenities first. And so, like, us being by location, I think it's a huge driver. But anyway, so we're getting people usually make their money back in the same year and a half, give or take. That's typically what it takes when they buy into our program as well as theirs. But and that's, yeah, our price point is like 8,400 right now. And so our biggest thing is we try and make it work for everyone.
Yeah. So it's actually still, sorry to butt in again, but it's actually still relatively affordable compared to a lot of mentorship programs out there. Because, like, I think the going rate on a lot of these high level investor programs is like 20 grand.
Yeah, yeah. I'll see. What's his name? Jorge Contreras. He's been in it for a while. He teaches arbitrage, and same thing. Doesn't do location. Does, and probably a great program, but does, like, the systems, how to build it out, how to reach people, how to do this, how to do that. Like, he has a really strong guarantee as well. His is like, he'll stay with you until you get your return on your money, or whatever. Um, but like, it still doesn't, like, there's no. And if you apply yourself, you're doing it. I'm sure you're going to make it happen. That's 20 grand. But for me, it's, we're still in the beginning stages still. Like, we've only been open for about a year now. And, I know we're going to be growing a lot. And I know I'm not going to stay at that price of 84 currently as it is today. But at the same time, I want to continue to dive into science of what it actually takes to make someone successful.
Yeah. Is it still a lifetime membership, or does it expire at some point?
Oh yeah, now it expires. So, I mean, for new contracts, right? People who've been in it, like, from the very beginning are still, they don't fall in that space. But yeah, now it's 16 weeks is the initial, and then for the next level program, it's 1 year.
Mine's a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. All right. Got in early enough. Nice.
All right, so real quick, kind of talking on that a little bit too, Michael. You did talk about growing out of scale too fast. How would you recommend somebody grow responsibly, and where do you see yourself going with that in the next 5 years?
That's a great question. I never really look 5 years ahead for one, but that's just too far. So much can change. But, like, I'd say, how does one grow responsibly with that is really just making sure they check all their numbers. That's one thing. So what that means is their KPIs of what actually causes them to be successful. So that could be, sales. Okay, well, what makes a sale successful? Figuring that out. Okay, what makes the client successful? Figure that out. What is it going to take to be able to handle the next workload of people if you're going to be growing at such a rate? Check that out. So I think you just need to understand what it, like those three factors of what it takes to get a sale, what it takes to make someone successful for client fulfillment, and then what it takes to handle that capacity of more people. Because if you can answer those three questions, you can scale pretty well. And you kind of have to get really I mean, that's like the simple answer, but you have to get really nerdy about it. And then like in terms of 5 years, I have no idea. I mean, I would love it. I love this part of it. I would love to sell my management company by then, just because I don't like it. But like the coaching side, I love being able to get in with people. The investment side, I love. So we're building a fund right now. So we're looking to buy about 20 properties this next year, as well as do a few hotels. So those things are a lot more exciting to me. And so I'm excited to see where that turns out. And I'm excited to see where my coaching program turns out. And I'm excited to see if I can bring on more partners or other people who can take away the pains of the management company.
All right. I think we lost Jeremy, but I can step in. So what so Jeremy's next question was probably going to be our famous, if you had $30 million just put in your bank account tomorrow, what do you think one of the first things you purchase would be?
Oh man, I would not put in my bank account, but I don't know. It's a great question. That's a great question. Well, I don't know what I would do.
That's a good answer. So that means you probably have what you need financially.
Yeah, I definitely do.
And you love what you're doing. That's it's nice when people get confused on that question, because you got more than just money driving you.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can definitely see like what you get excited about. Like, I mean, I have what I need in terms of family. I love them so much. Like when I spend more money, like when I get more, like every time I'll get like a bucket loads more money, I'm like, all right, more gym equipment because I love gym stuff, right? Or more outdoor stuff because I love outdoor stuff. But like, and more food because I love food. That's literally it. Like, and travel, yeah, more travel because I love. But it's like we're doing those things, and so beyond that, there's not much more I get excited about besides being with my girls, which is my wife and my two daughters, and traveling with them. There's not really much more besides really helping people. I guess like on that end, I'd probably think, okay, 30 million is a lot. Like I can grow that. We can build that. Sure. And I probably would continue doing some businesses that would grow it. I definitely wouldn't be doing the management stuff as much. Maybe I would, to a degree of like building a team for it because I know that industry now. But I would only be as a CEO, not mean as a COO. I'd want to be on the board, but I want to I think I would just put other people off to it.
How many properties are you currently managing?
Nothing crazy, probably around 14 or so right now in terms of what's under contract.
That's a decent amount. I mean, for vacation rentals, it's like, 10 times the work as a long-term. So it's almost like having a long-term with 140 rentals.
Sure. Yeah. And we have people that we're moving towards who are going to be like, right now I'm supposed to be hiring for a COO. And so that, like, cause I had one and then that person left, which was really sad because he was amazing. So now I'm looking for another person because I don't want to do any of that. It's not fun.
Yeah, I totally, dude, I feel like we're so alike when it comes to the day-to-day stuff. We know what we like, we know what we don't, but sometimes we don't know what we don't like until we try it.
Yeah, that's true. It's very true.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm sorry we lost Jeremy.
I know.
I'm sure he would say thank you too. Any closing thoughts that you have before we get out of here?
No, can't say that I do have. That's it. Yeah, that's all I got. I mean, I think what you guys are doing is amazing, and it's been fun. I'd say learn as much you can, consume as much education, but don't hurt yourself by not taking action.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, thank you, Michael.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
All right, you have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for tuning in to the Investor Shed podcast. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel for instant access to all future episodes. If you or someone you know has investing experience or stories to share, reach out to us in the comments or via email.